I'm going to tell you some unclassified, previously classified information. There are folk in this room that do not know what ARMY stands for. Most folk, if you ask the question, would say, well, it stands for the Army. No. It stands for ain't ready to become a Marine yet. World War II.
Just in case you want a rebuttal, baby.
Yeah, all right. Don't give him that mic.
I'm sure glad I couldn't hear that.
And I'm glad his hearing aids don't work. During World War II, they had to have a few Marines in order to win the war. So they gathered them all together, and they sent all of them to the Pacific. They didn't send any of us to Europe. And many of us asked the question, there's nothing in the Pacific except jungle and Japanese. That's not very entertaining or certainly nothing to see. So we said, why? And they said, well, we couldn't send those Marines to a civilized country. They wouldn't know how to act.
I think the Marine Corps is really part of the Navy, isn't that correct?
I knew it was wrong to give him that mic. Cut his mic off, whoever's in charge. Now, do you know what USMC stands for? Most of you, if I ask you, would say, why, United States Marines, of course. That is not correct. What it stands for is Uncle Sam's misguided children. This may have already been done, but on a serious note, this may have already been done. But if we haven't, it would be a sin not to do it. So, could I, at the answer to my question, ask all Gold Star family members, a person who had a relative who sacrificed their life in the armed forces of this country, any time in history, they are then a Gold Star family member all the way back. So would all of those, I'm not going to ask you to stand, would you raise your hand so we can see who you are, how many are here? Now let the rest of us thank them for their sacrifice. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank all Gold Star family members for coming and being with us. That's what it's all about, as far as I'm concerned, because they sacrifice more than any of us. My second question and request is that everyone in the audience who has a Purple Heart, would you please just raise your hand? Everyone with a Purple Heart. Thank you. Thank you very much. There but the grace of God, their family could have been a Gold Star family. So we thank you, everyone who possesses that precious metal. The last Sunday in September is Gold Star Mothers and Gold Star Family Day. There are millions of people in our country who have never heard that that is something that we should observe and honor, because nowhere is it listed so that the general public would have knowledge of it. If I could issue an executive order, I would issue that order to say that the last Sunday in September should be on every calendar, on the national calendar of this country, so that those who do not know could get some appreciation of the sacrifices that were made so they can do what they're doing, living in a free country, living free like no other place in the world. And it would then continue to let folks know they're here. They have what they have because someone sacrificed their life to make it possible. So if we have folk in here running for Congress or the legislature or something of that nature, I'd like somebody to pick that ball up and run with it, and sometime in the future see September 30 as a national holiday honoring those. They asked me to speak just a few words, and if I'm running over, let me know. A few words about my experience in World War II and Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima was like any other island, really. And we had taken a great number of them before we ever got to Iwo Jima. The year before, we had taken Guam back, that the Japanese had taken from us in 1942, and eliminated every American on the island. The thing that made Iwo Jima the icon that it is was not only those 6 Marines who raised the flag on Mount Suribachi. It was Old Glory, our flag, flying on enemy territory for the very first time since December 7, 1941. It did something, certainly, for the spirit of every Marine on that island who saw Old Glory waving on Mount Suribachi. But when it appeared on the front page of every newspaper in this country, a few days later, it did something for the spirit of America, because it said, by taking their government's land, our enemy territory, we are winning! And we did. That's what made Iwo Jima the front page news. When that flag appeared on a picture down in South Texas, there was a family by the name of Block lived down there. They had a boy. He was a boy. Most of us were. Particularly the moms. We were still a boy. Age didn't change that. But they had a boy in the Marine Corps. They had no idea where he was, because when we were overseas, we couldn't tell anybody anything. We couldn't say where we were, what we were doing, or anything of that nature. So our families had no idea what we were doing, even if we were alive. When that picture appeared, Mama Block looked at the photo on the front page, and she said, "Well, that's my boy Harlan." Meaning Harlan was the fellow on the end of the pipe. I said pipe. What were they doing with pipe on Iwo Jima? They couldn't drink the water on Iwo Jima. It was too sulfur. It would make you sick as a, well, we used to say, sick as a dog. So they had to depend on God for their water. It would accumulate in caverns in that volcano. And they took 2.5-inch water pipe, just like we used in our homes or in our country. And they gravity fed that water from those caverns, those holes in the mountain, down the mountain, into the caves, filled some drums, water drums, to preserve what they could with the number of barrels that they had. But after we were bombing and broke up all of those pipe, the only water they had left was what they had preserved in those barrels. Mama Block, when she looked over and saw that was, she said, her boy, Harlan, some of the family said to her, "Mom, you don't know whether that's Harlan or not because you can't see his face. There's no profile. So you don't even know where he is. You don't even know that he's there." And Mama Block said, "I don't care. I know that's my boy, Harlan." Time went on, and then they printed the names. And when they printed the names, they said that young Marine trying to put the pipe in the ground was a Marine from Connecticut, not her son, Harlan Block. So they said to Mom, "See, Mom, that's not Harlan. The newspaper says it is a Marine from someplace else." Didn't change Mom's opinion. She continued to say that in spite of the newspaper. One of the daughters said to Mom at one point in time, "Mom, you've got to quit saying that because the paper said it wasn't. Said it was Robert Hansen." She says, "I don't care. I know." And the daughter then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, "Mom, people think you're losing your mind." Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Then said, Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Mom, people think you're losing your mind. Mom, people think